This company beat Amazon. It beat Apple. By one of the most respected surveys in all of business, it offered the single best customer experience of any company, in any industry, anywhere. Not the best in retail, not the best in its category. The best, period. Customers didn't just like this company, they loved it. They drove past competitors to shop there. They spent entire Saturday afternoons inside its stores on purpose. And then, within the same year that it was crowned number one, it filed for bankruptcy, shut down more than 1,200 locations, and vanished from the American landscape entirely. Here is the part that should genuinely frighten anyone who runs a business. Those glowing satisfaction scores were not a warning that got ignored. They were the exact reason nobody saw the end coming. The applause was so loud that it drowned out the sound of the ground giving way. This is the story of a metric that almost every company on Earth still worships, and how it quietly lies to you right up until the moment it kills you. The company was Borders. If you are old enough to remember it, you remember it fondly, and that feeling is the whole point of this story. Borders was not just a bookstore. It was, for a generation of readers, the bookstore. Founded in 1971 by two brothers in Ann Arbor, Michigan, it grew into one of the two giants of American book retail, alongside Barnes and Noble. At its peak, Borders operated more than 1,200 stores. These were not cramped little shops. They were superstores, cathedrals of books, with deep wooden shelves, comfortable chairs, in-store cafes, and enormous sections for music and film. People did not go to Borders to buy a book and leave. They went to spend time there. And in 2011, the research firm Forrester released its fourth annual Customer Experience Index, a study that surveyed thousands of consumers about more than 150 brands across every industry. When the results came in, Borders sat at the very top, above Amazon, above Apple, above every storied brand you could name. By that measure, no company in America delivered a better experience to its customers than Borders. And in February of that exact same year, Borders filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. To feel the weight of that collapse, you have to understand how good Borders genuinely was at the thing it was measured on. The original Borders was built by people who were obsessive about books. The founders developed a sophisticated inventory system that let each store stock titles tailored to its specific local community, long before that kind of data-driven retail was common. Walking into a Borders felt like walking into a store that understood you. The staff were knowledgeable. The selection was vast. The atmosphere invited you to linger, coffee in hand, flipping through a stack of books you had not planned to buy. Through the 1990s and into the 2000s, Borders expanded aggressively. Giant new superstores, international locations, massive floor space devoted not just to books, but to compact discs and DVDs, because at the time, music and movies sold on physical media were enormously profitable, and a Borders superstore was a one-stop destination for a whole evening's worth of culture. Customers rewarded all of it with their loyalty and their affection. Survey after survey, Borders scored beautifully on satisfaction. The people who shopped there were, by every available measure, delighted. And that delight became the story the company told itself about its own health. We are loved, therefore we are safe. It is one of the most dangerous sentences a business can ever believe. Here is the trap, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Customer satisfaction is a lagging indicator. It is a vanity metric. It measures one specific thing extremely well, how happy your current customers are with your current product right now. And that sounds like exactly the thing you would want to know. But read that sentence again slowly, because every word in it is a cage. Current customers, current product, right now. A satisfaction score tells you nothing about the customers you are losing because they have already left and stopped answering your surveys. It tells you nothing about the people who never walked in the door because the market moved somewhere you are not. And it tells you nothing, nothing at all, about whether the ground underneath your entire business is shifting. Behavioral scientists have a name for the bias this feeds. It is a form of survivorship bias layered on top of confirmation bias. You are sampling the happy survivors, the people who stayed, and then you are using their applause to confirm the story you already wanted to believe. Satisfaction is not the same as loyalty. Loyalty is not the same as growth. And growth is not the same as survival. A company can be adored by the customers it has, while the market quietly hires a completely different solution to do the job those customers used to come to you for. High satisfaction scores do not protect you from that. They blind you to it, because they feel like proof that everything is fine. Now watch how the trap closes. While Borders was busy being loved, the actual job its customers came to do was migrating somewhere else entirely. In the early 2000s, online book buying exploded, led by Amazon. And Borders made a decision that, in hindsight, reads like a company handing the keys to its own future to a competitor. Rather than build its own online store, Borders outsourced its entire e-commerce operation to Amazon.com. From roughly 2001 to 2008, if you went to the Borders website to buy a book online, you were effectively shopping at Amazon, with Amazon learning everything about that customer. The customer Borders had spent decades and millions of dollars earning. Borders did not build a serious web strategy of its own until 2008, by which point the war was already lost. At the same time, the company was pouring money and floor space into compact discs and DVDs, physical media that was collapsing as the world moved to digital downloads and streaming. And it was late, fatally late, to the e-reader. When the Kindle arrived and reading itself started going digital, Borders had no answer. Through every single quarter of this slow-motion disaster, its in-store customers stayed happy. The people still walking through the doors were still delighted. The satisfaction scores stayed high. The experience was still excellent. The metric kept flashing green while the entire foundation of the business was being hollowed out underneath it. In February 2011, the company that Forrester had just named #1 in customer experience filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The numbers behind the love had been ugly for years. Hundreds of Borders stores had simply been losing money, locked into long 15 and 20-year leases that gave the company almost no room to retreat. There had been 4 different chief executives in 3 years, a revolving door of leadership during the most critical window in the company's history. And by September of that same year, the bankruptcy turned into total liquidation. Every one of the more than 1,200 stores closed. The cafes went dark. The shelves were emptied and sold off. A brand that customers genuinely loved was simply gone. And here is the parallel that should make every executive uncomfortable, because Borders was not a freak accident. Think about Saturn. In 2002, the car brand Saturn did something no non-luxury nameplate had done since 1986. It ranked highest in J.D. Power's customer service index for dealer service, outranking luxury brands costing many times more. Saturn customers were famous for their loyalty. People threw barbecues at the factory, they wrote letters, they evangelized the brand. It was, by satisfaction, one of the most loved brands General Motors had ever created. And in 2009, when General Motors went bankrupt and restructured, Saturn was one of the brands GM chose to kill. The most loved brand the company had, and the one it decided it could not afford to keep. Satisfaction did not save it either. So here is the part that has nothing to do with bookstores or cars, and everything to do with you. If you take one thing from this episode, let it be this. A high satisfaction score answers the wrong question. It tells you whether the customers you have are happy with the product you sell today. It does not tell you whether the job those customers are trying to get done is quietly moving to someone else. Borders measured how much people loved browsing a bookstore, right up until people stopped wanting to browse bookstores. Those are 2 completely different questions, and the satisfaction survey can only ever answer the first one. So you have to go hunting for the second one yourself. Stop asking only, "Are my customers happy?" Start asking the harder questions the survey will never ask for you. Who used to buy from me and stopped, and where did they go? What is the job my best customers are hiring me for, and is there a cheaper, faster, or more convenient way to get that job done that does not involve me at all? If my most loyal customer started completely fresh today, with everything that now exists in the market, would they still choose me? Satisfaction is comfortable. It feels like a report card full of A's. But a report card only grades the test you chose to take. The companies that survive are the ones brave enough to go looking for the test they are quietly failing, while everyone around them is still applauding, because the applause is real. It is just not the same thing as being safe. If this changed the way you look at the numbers on your own dashboard, subscribe to Why They Succeed. Every week, we break down the psychology behind business success and failure so you can spot these patterns before they cost you everything. Next week, the opposite kind of story. A company that listened carefully to exactly what its customers said they wanted and almost died doing it. Then it did the one thing every focus group told it not to do, and that single act of ignoring its own customers turned it into one of the most valuable businesses on earth. The lesson is going to sting because it breaks a rule you have been told your entire career. Subscribe so you do not miss it.